Hey guys, it's Brian. I am still at the Toronto Film Festival. I'm kind of wrapping things up here. I just have a few more movies to see. Very soon on this channel, I will be back in my studio at home. But yeah, I'm still here seeing some very interesting movies, and my review for you today is Luca Guadagnino's Queer, which was one of my most anticipated films of the week. And kind of like with Night Bitch, as I'm going to talk about, this movie fell a little flat to me. This movie didn't fully work. There's a lot of great things in it. The performances are pretty good. But boy, at the end of this movie, I didn't know what to think. And I was like, really? That's it? Okay. I had a lot of faith in this movie. Luca Guadagnino has had a run. Like Bones and All was on my list of the top 10 films of 2022, and Challengers is in my top 2 favorites of 2024. That movie blew my mind. I think about it all the time. And so Guadagnino having a second feature film in 2024 was very exciting. That it's a gay film starring Daniel Craig in a role that has been getting lots of awards buzz the last few months, I would say. It's based on a very famous best-selling novel. A24 is putting this out at the end of the year, I think, anyway. And so, yeah, I had a lot of expectations going into this. And I will admit here, right off the top, I did expect a movie that I didn't get. I thought Queer was going to be more Call Me By Your Name and A Single Man. And it's more David Lynch, to be honest. Like, for about an hour, it's an effective gay drama. Daniel Craig plays a character named Lee. He's living in 1940s Mexico City. And he's kind of cruising the scene. He has a thing for younger guys, and early on in the movie, he has a sexual escapade with this young, handsome man. And then he stumbles upon this guy named Allerton, played by Drew Starkey, who's also very good in this. And Lee isn't sure at first if Allerton is even gay, if he might have a chance with him. And so it's a lovely, I would say, 45 minutes of them getting to know each other, and they do definitely have chemistry and find a connection with each other. It's not all hearts and roses and them falling in love. That's not what this movie is at all. But they definitely have a fondness for each other, and it's nice to spend time with them. Luca Guadagnino really brings 40s Mexico City to life in this. Some beautiful photography, production design. The score in this movie by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross is, as expected, very good. It's not memorable in the way their score was for Challengers. Like, that score is like the best of the year for me right now, like just unbelievable. But the score to Queer is very good. This movie is about 2 hours and 15 minutes. And for about an hour, I was kind of wavering between 3.5 stars and 4 stars out of 5. I wasn't loving it, but I was enjoying it. I was admiring it. Daniel Craig was doing some interesting things in his performance. But holy cow, does this movie go off the rails. And it's kind of difficult for me to review because I haven't read the novel, which I believe was published in the 80s and has a big fan base. I'm assuming what happens in the second half of Queer is faithful to the book. So obviously, if Luca Guadagnino is going to turn that into a movie, he's not going to do just something wildly different from the book. So I don't know really where the blame goes here because sadly, at least for me, the second half of Queer doesn't really work at all. Like, I admired some of its ambition, some of the cinematography is cool, and there is one bonkers great supporting performance in the second half by Leslie Manville. If this movie could get one Oscar nomination, I think it should go supporting actress for Manville. She is that good. I did not recognize her at first. I was like, who is this act? Oh my God, that's Leslie Manville. And she's in a few scenes. It's not just a quick cameo. Like, she has, I want to say, 10 to 15 minutes maybe of screen time in the second half. She was definitely the best part of the later chunk of the movie. But so without giving away spoilers, basically the first hour plus is like a single man, is very quiet. There is some humor in the movie. Jason Schwartzman plays a gay man, a friend of Lee's, who's very funny. And whenever he's on screen, like, the movie kind of lights up. We needed more of that, I think, in Queer. The early scenes of gay sexuality are very well done, authentic, like, pretty explicit, and I was happy about that. Luca Guadagnino does not turn his camera to the window. Well, he kind of does. There is a moment where that happens, and you think we're getting another Call Me By Your Name. Like, we're not going to see anything. The camera's going out. But then we cut back to the hotel room and we see everything. This is not a watered down gay love story by any means. But I did genuinely feel like the second half was an entirely different movie that doesn't get much of a setup. Like, there are a couple moments in the first half where we get some surrealism. I took it to be like him dreaming, Lee having a dream and thinking about Allerton. And, like, there's a little taste of what's to come, but this movie just goes completely off the rails in the last hour. It becomes this insane, nightmarish vision that just gets weirder and weirder and weirder, all the way to an epilogue sequence where I was scratching my head. I am all for a movie going weird. That's fine. Like, David Lynch movies are some of my favorites ever made. But it wasn't a good blend of the gay love story, the character work, and then going into the craziness of the second half. It didn't feel right to me. Maybe it feels right in the book, but as a movie, it just seemed to be all over the place. And at the end, there was no emotional impact. I wasn't watching the final scene getting choked up, or being inspired, or being like, wow, this is really unusual and different. This is cool. I was just like, what happened to this movie? I was vibing with this for a while, and I don't know what this is anymore. And that's not what you want your viewer to think at the end of a movie. Again, I'm all about ambition, trying something different. I walked out of the theater laughing to myself a little bit, because my main criticism of Night Bitch was that it wasn't weird enough, and my main criticism of Queer is that it's too weird. Both times the second half. Both first hours or so of Night Bitch and Queer I was into, I thought were working, and then the second half of both movies fell a little flat. Night Bitch became too safe, and Queer just went too bonkers insane. Like, there is a moment in the jungle with the two main characters, a scene of, like, interesting visual imagery, but it goes on and on and on and on, and I'm like, what? Like, I was like, what is happening in this movie? This one is a genuine head scratcher, I have to say. And going in, I thought, at the bare minimum, Daniel Craig is going to be an Oscar contender and Best Actor. That's what I've been hearing the last few weeks. I didn't read up on all the Venice reviews of Queer. Maybe I should have. I don't know. But walking out of Queer, I was like, I don't think this movie is going to get any Oscar nominations. I think Challengers has a better shot of getting into the Oscars than Queer. I don't think Queer is going to work for many awards voters, for many audience members. I can't imagine there being like a swell of support for Queer in the months to come. Daniel Craig is good. It's not like a stellar performance. There's not a moment in Queer where I was really taken by what he was doing. Unlike, say, A Single Man, where Colin Firth breaks my heart in multiple scenes in that movie. Basically, the entire film. Colin Firth is on another level in A Single Man, whereas Queer, I liked his performance. He's got some interesting quirks to that character, but it is kind of cold too. You never get a full sense of who this guy is, and I think with the surrealism of the second half, the very deep, crazy weirdness at the very ends, I didn't care enough about Lee in that last half hour to go along with this insane, surreal vision. Drew Starkey as Allerton is very good. I believe he's a newcomer. I don't know if I've seen him in a TV project, a film project. He is excellent in this. He's very handsome, charismatic. But again, I felt like the movie didn't give him enough to do. I was hoping for some kind of emotional catharsis with his character in the second half, and that never really comes. I felt like the movie doesn't use his character to the best of its ability. I had heard rumblings that Drew Starkey could be a contender for the Oscar in Best Supporting Actor. Now, having seen the movie, I don't think that's the case, although he's good, and I'm excited to see what he does next. Could Daniel Craig crack that top 5? I feel like he will get a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actor in a Motion Picture Drama, and that's it. I think he's going to get that one nomination, and then the awards train for Daniel Craig will be over. That's my assumption right now. It's sad to me to think that Luca Guadagnino is not going to get into Best Director for either of his films he had this year. Like, I think he deserves a nomination for Challengers, but that movie came out way back in April. I don't think that movie is going to get into the Oscars outside of maybe film editing and original score. Anything else would delightfully surprise me. Queer, I think, is going to get nothing, sadly. Although, again, Leslie Manville in this movie, that would be an inspired Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress. She is fantastic in her few scenes later in the film. It's too bad. I'm disappointed, to be sure, because as a gay person, I love lifting up LGBTQ cinema. And this is a movie, for a while, that works pretty well. It's an interesting examination of this love story of these two men who have a connection. And so I wish I could have come on here and said, Queer is a masterpiece. I see it getting 4, 5, maybe 6 Oscar nominations. Keep an eye out for it from A24. It's spectacular. But I can't. I have to be honest in my reaction and say that at the end of the movie, I felt nothing. I was like, what is happening here? This is not working for me. And I'm sad to report that because I really, really wanted this to be good. If you're a fan of Daniel Craig, if you're a fan of Luca Guadagnino, you might like this more than I did. I have seen some rave reviews over the last few hours. Some people do love that crazy second half. You might have a different reaction to this movie than I did. That's what's fun about films. We all have our different takes. We all have the different lives we lead, what we bring to each movie in terms of our expectations, what we know about the director and the actors. Queer is a divisive film. Some people are going to hate. Some people will be mixed on it like me. Some will like or love this movie. I'm curious to see what the reaction will be when it eventually opens. But right now, at this moment, I have to be honest and say Queer, for me, was a letdown. I give this film a 5 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and I will be back with many more reviews from the Toronto Film Festival. I'll see you next time at the Awards Contender.